Today I'm reacting to an August 21st article in the Arizona Republic about the Dragon Bravo fire. This is Canyon Whispers, and I'm your host, Rebecca. So here's an article from the Arizona Republic, written on August 21st, 2025, by Stephanie Murray and Robert Anglin. National Park Service officials say there was no way to predict the Dragon Bravo fire would turn into an inferno, jump containment lines, and rip through the Grand Canyon's north rim, leaving a historic lodge and 100 other structures in smoking ruin. But records, including the Grand Canyon's fire management plan, are at odds with the official narrative. They show officials downplayed threats to public safety and decided to let the fire burn for 7 days, even as fuel and weather conditions repeatedly reached the brink of critical thresholds for fire risk. The management plan lists 4 conditions that signal when a fire could get out of control. 2 days after lightning sparked the July 4 fire, a combination of high temperatures, low humidity, wind speed, and gusts began coalescing in a way the park's plan warned could greatly increase fire behavior. That was the first time. An analysis by the Arizona Republic using data recorded by the National Weather Service at the North Rim found temperature, humidity, and wind came even closer to reaching critical thresholds on July 9 and closer still on July 10. 3 of the threshold conditions were sustained for nearly 6 hours on July 10, when at one point only 2 miles per hour of wind speed prevented all 4 from being met. Added to the critical conditions is a warning about the North Rim's landscape of spruce fir trees and mixed conifer forests, which the fire plan says supports the potential for extreme fire behavior that leads to large fire growth. Park officials chose to manage the fire under a confine and contain strategy, despite weather and fuel conditions. They said in public statements and in social media posts that letting the fire burn allows for the natural role of fire on the landscape while minimizing the risk to infrastructure and park values. Minimizing the risk to infrastructure. National Park Service spokesperson Rachel Paulitz maintained the fire was expertly handled. Bullshit. And said the quick response by firefighters saved hundreds of lives. Well, yeah, saving lives is great. They could have done a lot more to prevent the fire from burning the buildings, or that much of the forest. The Dragon Bravo fire is now the 7th largest in Arizona history. The wildfire decimated tourism at the North Rim, unleashed toxic chlorine gas when it destroyed a water treatment plant in Grand Canyon National Park, and forced residents out of their homes. The fire was 62% contained on August 20th. As flames continue to chew up the northern Arizona landscape, elected officials, former park staff, and evacuated residents are asking why the National Park Service let the fire burn in a treasured location at the peak of fire season. Yeah, that was dumb. Here's a gem. A National Park Service social media post on July 7th. Dragon Bravo Fire, North Rim. A lightning-caused wildfire known as the Dragon Bravo Fire is burning on the north rim of Grand Canyon National Park. The fire is currently estimated at approximately 10 acres and is located south of the basin near the W1 road. The fire is being managed for resource objectives, which means it is being used to help maintain a healthy, resilient landscape in the fire-adapted ecosystem of the North Rim. State and federal lawmakers across the political spectrum are calling for investigations into the fire response. Arizonans deserve answers for how this fire was allowed to decimate the Grand Canyon National Park, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs said on July 13th. Top National Park Service officials have declined to answer questions about the fire management plan, or firefighter staffing. Imagine that. The Republic's questions were routed to communications staff in Arizona and Washington, D.C. Information requests were required to be filed through a public records portal, and staff said it could take years for those requests to be fulfilled because they don't want to admit they messed up. Park Service spokespeople instead have sought to change the story of how the agency handled the fire's early days, saying unpredictable winds blew the fire out of control on July 11th. I will restate that the park's fire management approach all along was to suppress the fire as safely as possible, Paulitz told the Republic in an August 11th email. Brant Porter, National Park Service Fire Information Officer, said the fire was managed under a suppression strategy from the beginning. Right. That's exactly how it went from 10 acres to 1,500 in a matter of days. Or even hours. I forget. Their statements conflict with the service's own social posts about managing the fire, which do not mention suppression until July 12th, less than 5 hours before the destruction of the Grand Canyon Lodge. Mark Rose, a former National Park Service employee, said Fire Service officials weren't realistic about their ability to control the fire and then tried to cover themselves. It was growing and they just didn't react soon enough, said Rose, who managed commercial services at the North Rim for 12 years beginning in 2007. It didn't feel all that unpredictable to me, or extraordinary. Rose said the house he lived in while working at the Grand Canyon burned to the ground in the fire. He called it heartbreaking and described the official response as spin. It's just too hot and dry at that time of year, and a little bit of wind comes up and boy, it gets away from them, he said. Officials said they lost control of the Dragon Bravo fire on July 11th. The data show the blaze was at risk of spiraling out of control much earlier. Critical thresholds are met at the North Rim when temperatures exceed 70 degrees, relative humidity is below 15%, wind gusts are over 15 miles per hour, and wind speeds surpass 10 miles per hour, according to the Fire Management Plan. At 1:07 p.m. on July 6, National Weather Service data shows the temperature and wind gusts neared two of the four critical conditions. The temperature was 80 degrees and wind gusts hit 15 miles per hour. The humidity level hovered at 17%. It stayed hot and got windier on July 7th. Compare that to a July 7 post on the Park Service's Facebook page when the fire was reportedly at 10 acres. The fire is being managed for resource objectives, which means it is being used to help maintain a healthy, resilient landscape in the fire-adapted ecosystem of the North. The post said there are no threats to infrastructure or public safety at this time. At 2:07 p.m. on July 9, two of the conditions were met. The temperature was 89 degrees and wind gusts hit 18 miles per hour. The humidity level was 17%. Oh, here we go. North Rim Dragon Bravo Fire Update, Wednesday, July 9, 2025. Alert! The Wid Force Trail and trailhead parking is temporarily closed due to the fire. Yesterday, it was estimated at 27 acres. The fire is located south of the basin near the W1 road and continues to be managed for resource benefit objectives using a confine and contain strategy. This means the fire is being allowed to fulfill its natural role within a defined area. That is one big damn defined area. Almost 150,000 acres. There are no threats to infrastructure or public safety at this time. Sunny weather and light winds contributed to moderate fire behavior and growth yesterday. Fire crews continue to monitor the fire closely, using real-time weather data and on-the-ground observations to guide management decisions. Are they sure they were looking at real-time weather? Naturally ignited wildfires play an essential role in fire-dependent ecosystems like the North Rim by reducing heavy fuel accumulations and converting dead wood to nutrient-rich ash, stimulating new plant growth and maintaining habitat diversity, helping regulate insects and disease, creating a mosaic of burned and unburned vegetation. Oh, it's damn well gonna slow them down for a while. There's nothing left to burn. In a July 9 Facebook post, the Park Service repeated that the fire was being managed for resource benefit objectives and assured the public that there was nothing to worry about. It said naturally ignited wildfires play an essential role in fire-dependent ecosystems like the North Rim. Which is true, but it didn't need to be that big. The next day, the weather was nearly perfect for the wildfire to spread. 3 of the 4 critical thresholds were met and held steady for nearly 6 hours. Beginning at 2:07 p.m. July 10, temperatures hit 90 degrees. Wind gusts fluctuated between 14 and 25 miles per hour, and humidity dropped from 14% in the afternoon to 5% that night. Dragon Bravo Fire on the North Rim. Update Thursday, July 10, 2025. There is currently no threat to public safety or developed areas, though smoke is visible from both the North and South Rim developed areas. The fire continues to be managed under a confine and contain strategy, which allows for the natural role of the fire on the landscape while minimizing the risk to infrastructure and park values. As of today, approximately 61 personnel are assigned to the incident. A Type 3 incident management team assumed command on July 9 to assist with fire management operations. Weather conditions remain favorable for moderate fire behavior, with sunny skies and light winds contributing to a steady rate of spread. The following areas of Grand Canyon National Park are closed to all visitor use: the Tejo Point Trail, the Wood Forest Trail, the Wood Forest Trail, the NG9 Outlet Canyon Use Area, the NF9 Wood Forest Use Area, and all NPS lands above the Coconino Sandstone between Dragon Creek and Transept Canyon that are south of the W1 Point Sublime Road. The W1 Point Sublime Road is closed between the W4 segment and at the Arizona Trail crossing. The Arizona Trail remains open. The closure began on July 9, 2025, and will extend to August 9, 2025, or as soon as the area is safe, whichever is first. Yeah, well, on Facebook, the Park Service wrote the fire was being managed to minimize the risk to infrastructure and the park. Yeah, they just keep beating that dead horse, didn't they? The Park Service made its post at 4:45 p.m. Minutes later, the wind picked up, and at 5:07 p.m., the National Weather Service showed the 9-mile-per-hour wind speed was only 2 miles per hour away from meeting the fourth critical threshold. The Park Service did not change its confine and contain strategy to reflect the worsening conditions and maintained that there was still no threat to public safety or developed areas. Dragonbravofire update, 8:45 p.m., July 11, 2025. As of 8:45 p.m. on July 11, the Dragonbravofire on the north rim of Grand Canyon National Park is estimated at 1,500 acres. Due to increased fire activity, mandatory evacuation orders were issued earlier today for North Rim residents. The North Rim remains closed to all visitor use until further notice to support firefighting operations and ensure public safety for this fire and the nearby White Sage Fire. Smoke is expected to remain visible from the South Rim, and air quality conditions may vary depending on fire behavior and wind patterns. Current smoke and air quality information is available, blah, blah, blah. The Dragonbravofire grew to 1,500 acres on July 11, a blaze so powerful that Grand Canyon National Park issued mandatory evacuation orders for residents at the North Rim. On July 12, the Park Service announced on social media firefighters were engaged in a full suppression strategy. The fire has grown nearly tenfold since then. It is the nation's largest fire of 2025 and was mapped at 145,498 acres as of August 20th. National Weather Service meteorologist Darren McCollum, who is based in Flagstaff, summed up the first days of the fire bluntly. "It was hot and dry and breezy. That's all there is to it," he said. The Grand Canyon National Park fire plan was updated in April, but much of it relies on strategies and programs from 2012. The plan, which recognizes the Grand Canyon as a World Heritage Site for its place of significance and universal value, is supposed to serve as a roadmap for anticipating and fighting wildfires. Depending on how a fire is started, where it is burning, and if it threatens structures, the response could take a variety of routes. Fire Management Officer Sherman Ed Waldron and Park Superintendent Edward Keeble signed off on the fire plan. The cover sheet includes handwritten notes adjacent to boxes labeled Preparedness and Fire Danger Operating Plans, Working Off Old Plans, and Working with Forests on Updating Zone Plan, the notes say. The wildland fire management strategies and approved fuels management activities first described in the 2012 FMP Fire Management Plan remain unchanged, according to the executive summary. The 51-page plan lays out everything from the park's geographic zones, terrain, organizational charts, response procedures, and climate change to fire behavior, resource management, and fuel removal with and without prescribed burns. And it includes plenty of warnings, particularly when it comes to fires near some of the park's sensitive or developed sites, which are deemed exclusion areas to be protected. Great job, guys. 8 areas are identified in the plan as the park's most important infrastructure clusters and high-use tourist attractions, including the lodge and cabins on the North Rim, Grand Canyon Village on the South Rim, Phantom Ranch, Hermit's Rest, and Havasupai Gardens. Some wildfires in sections of the park can be managed for enhancement of wildlife habitat, tree reduction, or brush thinning. Protection is the sole objective for fires in the 8 areas. Suppression strategies and tactics will be used, especially in the immediate proximity to development's utilities hazardous materials, the plan states. Maps show the Dragon Bravo fire was about 4 miles away from the Grand Canyon Lodge when it started. But could they get their butts over there and put it out? No, of course not. Porter defended the Park Service response to the fire and blamed its expansion on dynamic and extreme weather conditions. A designated duty officer was assigned at all times to oversee the fire, as outlined in the management plan, he said. Did he sleep through it or what? Firefighters were building and improving containment features in the days prior to the fire impacting facilities, he said. Sure. Winds originally predicted to be 8 miles per hour and moving away from the developed area turned and increased to 20 miles per hour, he told the Republic in an August 7 email. Winds shifted unexpectedly during the firefight, resulting in wind gusts that caused the fire to jump multiple containment features and move toward facilities, he said. On July 11th at approximately 3:30 p.m., increasing and unpredictable shifting winds compromised the eastern flank containment line of the Dragon Bravo fire and led to rapid fire growth. Keeble, the park superintendent, was uncertain of how the Park Service described its effort to fight the fire. He was pressed on whether the National Park Service said Dragon Bravo was a managed fire during an August 18 community meeting in Fredonia. Honestly, I don't recall what we said. This may be a function of terminology. All wildfires are managed to some extent, Keeble said. The point I want to make is that from the very beginning, this was a suppression incident. We were not managing this, that's for damn sure. This was not a prescribed fire. We weren't managing the fire for resource effects. We were working to suppress the fire from the very beginning. Uh-huh. Well, you can tell he don't write the social media posts. Again, great job, guys. Bobby Scopa is a retired firefighter and board member of the Grassroots Wildland Firefighters Advocacy Group. I know from experience that the fire behavior we're seeing these days is not the same fire behavior that we would see 20, 30 years ago, she said. The fire plan sets 5 goals attempting to balance safety and preservation with the ecological role of fire. Protect human health and safety in private and public property. Restore and maintain park ecosystems in a natural, resilient condition. Protect the park's natural, cultural, and social values. Promote a science-based program that relies on current and best available information. Educate, inform, consult, and collaborate with tribes, stakeholders, and the public. Bill Wade, Executive Director of the Association of National Park Rangers, and a former superintendent of Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, questioned if the fire plan needed to be revised. Some of those management plans and the policies probably need to be updated. Maybe this one should have been, said Wade, who now lives in southern Arizona. With fires getting bigger and happening longer periods of time during the year and so forth, it certainly would call attention to the fact that perhaps some of the criteria and some of the policies and some of the plans need to be updated. Pollitt said now is not the time to talk about whether or not the plan was followed. Yeah, it's too late now. The National Park Service is committed to transparency, and in due time we will conduct any investigations that are required under our protocols, she said in her email. Self-investigating. Yeah, that's going to get to the truth. For now, with the fire still actively burning, our focus is on suppressing Dragon Bravo fire and preventing any further impacts to communities and resources. Residents are desperate for answers about why the National Park Service allowed the Dragon Bravo fire to burn in July, but officials have been tight-lipped about the first days of the wildfire. It's because they messed up. They pressed Eric Smith, the agency administrator representing Grand Canyon National Park, during an August 6th community meeting in Page, which is being smothered in smoke from the fire. Smith said he was unable to answer their questions about the fire's early days because he wasn't there. He was assigned to work on the blaze weeks later, starting July 30th. Instead, those decisions were up to leaders like Keeble, the park superintendent. Residents asked to hear from Keeble, but he did not attend the community meeting. I don't know where Ed is tonight. I just know they brought me to manage the fire, Smith said. I'm the only one here right now, and I don't have the information that you're looking for. Or he's not allowed to give it out. Keeble was out of the office at the time of the Page meeting. The park superintendent said he left for a pre-planned annual leave 23 days after the lodge burned. Keeble said he had worked the first weeks of the fire for 12 18-hour days. Oh, you poor baby. At times, the meeting in Page grew tense. One man who attended the listening session said that it seemed officials never learned their lesson about fires getting out of control in the middle of summer. Yeah? Smith acknowledged there's a lot of emotion in the community and that many in the room wanted to know more about decisions surrounding the start of the fire. The blaze still growing, it wasn't the right time to address them, Smith said. Yeah, it'll never be the right time for them, because they can't admit they messed up. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and there will be a time to ask those questions, and the Park Service will answer those questions, Smith said. No, they won't, or not with the truth. I would imagine there will be community meetings after the fire is over, and that we can start looking backwards. Just right now, we're looking forwards. Yeah, they need time to come up with a story. He echoed the Park Service claim that the blaze was suppressed from the start and said confine and contain strategy is a suppression strategy. Over the course of the 75-minute meeting, a Coconino County supervisor discussed an emergency disaster loan program for businesses that rely on the busy summer tourism season at the North Rim. An air quality expert demonstrated how to build an air purifier with a box fan for people struggling with smoke in their homes. Time and time again, weather and fire experts at the meeting described historically dry weather that made it difficult to stop the fire. The canyon's steep landscape made the fight even more challenging, they noted, along with the dried out fire fuel like twigs and pine needles that covered the area and quickly spread the blaze. Those are the same factors that left observers baffled by how the fire was handled a month earlier. I seriously question a lot of allowing a fire to burn in July in northern Arizona, said Mark Niebel, Grand Canyon National Park's former geosciences program manager. That's the peak of fire season. Yeah. It's Arizona. It's summertime. Lightning strike starts a fire 4 miles away from a historic building. Nah, it's fine. Just leave it. It'll go away. Over 145,000 acres later, and no more historic building. Amazing.